Has it been recording? Did I mess up? I have no idea if what I just said recorded. Maybe it just started. I don't know. I don't know. So um, let me say what I had to say again. We're going to do something about the founding documents. We're going to go through some notes for the founding documents. But the very first thing I want to do is pick a bone with some of you because some of you need to be shown how to write an email. You click on the compose button. You go to two, and if you're sending me an email, Mr. Beavers, subject is where you put a very short summary of what the email is about, right? And then you say blah blah blah. You stink because of all of this kind of stuff, and here's why I don't like you, and blah 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 blah. Okay, and then you click send, and this is what it looks like when it comes. Right, the subject says you stink. Right there, and then here's all the reasons why I stink. Right, okay, so that's not what some of you are doing. Some of you are going like this. And use like everything in there in the subject line. That's not where you type the message. This is where you type the message. You see where I'm right here is where you type the message, right here, not up here. But that's what some of you are doing. You're putting it all up here. This is what it looks like when it comes to me. The entire message is in the subject line, right? The whole message is up in here. And then there's nothing down here where the message should be. Now, nobody's actually told me that I stink yet. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. But some of you are writing me emails, entire emails in the subject line. So remember, short message up here, the bulk of your message in the box. Okay, so that's that. Now, I want to go over with you the founding documents. And this is an introduction, right? The end of course exam has a lot of stuff about the founding documents on it. And I want you to know that I'm not just going to talk about the end of course exam, but I've been on a committee that's helped make the end of course exam, and it tells us, I've seen come across the desk in front of me, like so many, hundreds of, maybe even thousands of test questions, right? I know what is on the test because I helped make the test. So whenever I say this is going to be on the end of course exam, that means like it's in the curriculum, right? I want to go above and beyond, but I want to make sure that you're prepared. Okay, so even if you get sick of it. Now, if you look at the piece of paper that's in front of you, because I should have the Mr. Beavers that's standing, over there, should have already given you some notes to fill in the blank notes. My expectations are that you fill in these notes, all of them, while this PowerPoint is being played. That's my expectation. Okay. Here's the thing. When I made this, I thought it would be great to put this in. And great to put this in. And this is like background to why there are founding documents in the end of course exam curriculum. And then I just realized after doing it first period and second period on Monday that this is just a waste of time. So I'm going to start here. Can you go down to number 4? You can X out 1 through 3, right? It's a big chunk of the front page. And if you could go down to is that going to be a better place to put me? Whoa. Wow, I didn't know you could do that. Wow. Okay, let's start at number 4. Founding documents. We have to know what the founding documents are. So, and not just what they are, like what they say, what they do, what they have done for us, what the importance of them are. So, like, what is the founding? And you've probably heard of the phrase founding fathers, but who are the founding fathers? And what are they having to do with founding documents? So, basically, what you can see here in number 4A, when you say founding, you're usually starting about something beginning. When we say the founding of the United States, we're talking about the founding of our nation, the beginning of our nation, the start. Most students, if I asked them to pick a year when the United States of America started, most students, I think, students didn't yesterday. It was like pulling teeth to get them to say this yesterday. But most students would say, this is when we started, Mr. Beaver, 1776. Oh, why? 1776, right here. I imagine that's what they would say. Why aren't you circling? Does anybody else know why it's not circling? Uh-oh. There. Okay. That's the year that it starts. And most people would say, I chose that date because that's the year that the Declaration of Independence was written. The Declaration starts our country. That makes the Declaration of Independence the first founding document. Okay? Got me so far? The founding, the start of our country. Now, there are other founding documents as well, which is we're going to go through. So here they are, the major founding documents. The first one, obviously, is the Declaration of Independence. It officially separated the American colonies from what country? You tell me. You. You're right, Great Britain. You could put England there. You could put Spain. You could put... No, you could put Spain. What am I... Can I edit that out? Anyway, you could put England there. You could put Britain. You could put United Kingdom. They're all the same. Not Spain. What's the Declaration of Independence do? It says, literally, that these American colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states. Think of the 13 colonies, first original 13 states, kind of being like 13 different countries, 13 different independent countries. Not united yet, really, except that they're fighting against Great Britain. And of course, the year that is written is 1776. So, yeah, put me back down at the bottom. That'd be good. Okay. Now, here's a picture of the famous picture. I think this was commissioned for the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. So we're talking like it was painted in the 1820s, right? This is the famous painting that a lot of teachers use. Notice everybody's sitting calm, cool, and collected, right? They're chilling. This never happened. These men are at war. They've been at war for a year. They're running in and out, back and forth, up and down, right? They're scrambling to make sure the war is going to be fought and won. And so when they signed the Declaration, which is supposed to be, right here, they were running in and out, signing it, and then leaving, right? So a couple things happening here. I mentioned that just to say, it's funny how sometimes we kind of sanitize history and make it look a lot neater than it was. It was a lot messier than what this looks like. This is John Hancock. He was the president of the Second Continental Congress. He's the one who wrote in big handwriting, John Hancock, right? So to make sure that the king would see it. And how do I erase that? Okay. Okay. Now, this is the guy right here, Thomas Jefferson, who wrote most of the Declaration of Independence. His pen wrote almost all the words. Robert Livingston and Roger Sherman, or vice versa, I'm not sure. John Adams, who eventually became our second U.S. president, and then Ben Franklin, right here, who did lots and lots of things. These were the Committee of Five. These other four guys helped Jefferson edit the Declaration, etc. So, for example, Jefferson tried to blame the King of England for slavery, and these guys said, I think especially Franklin said, probably better not do that because it might get the Southerners to not want to join our cause in the Revolution. Okay, so, what I do? Okay, so we were not a united country officially until this was passed. This was the Articles of Confederation were the first constitution that we had in the United States. We've only had two. This was the first one. There was no president. There was no Supreme Court. There was only a legislature, a Congress, and it was very weak. Come on, there you go. The Articles eventually, well, they had some good stuff. I'll talk about one good thing, but they pretty much failed. As you can see, they lasted for only 7 years. And here's the thing: like the American colonists, especially the new states, couldn't agree on a lot of things, including, they wrote the Articles of Confederation. They wrote this Constitution. They wrote the thing that said what powers the national government could have and what powers it couldn't. They wrote that the year after the Declaration, and then it took them 4 years before they actually ratified it to make it official. And then they only kept it for 7 years. So this Articles of Confederation was not a very good document. It produced a very weak government that almost led to like a civil war. And I'm not going to linger on that. One good thing that the Articles of Government did was the Northwest Ordinance. It was written in 1787. It was a law written by the Articles Congress. The Ohio legislature, the state of Ohio legislature, wants to make sure that you know what this is, especially because it has a lot to do with the state of Ohio, or the Ohio Territory. It outlined the process for all of the Northwest territories to become states eventually. So that means it also had the process for governing the Northwest territories, and specifically relevant for us, for Ohioans, Ohio. It also set many precedents for the future. And if there's any of these 4 bullet points that I would want you to circle, it'd be this one, because if you want to know the most important thing for the end of course exam, it's this. Precedent means setting a standard. It means setting an example. It means you did it first and other people are following after. Other people are following after. Okay? We'll talk about what those precedents were later. This Friday, you should get some of that. So, I don't like how this makes my neck look fat. That's because it is. Okay. Northwest Territory, you can see here, this is what the Northwest Ordinance was helping figure out how these territories could become states. So we have Ohio became a state out of it, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, and then Wisconsin. 5 states were carved out of it. The U.S. Constitution was written in the same year as the Northwest Ordinance. The Northwest Ordinance was the last thing, really, that the Articles of Confederation Congress did. And then we realized we got to scrap the Articles. We have to have a better Constitution. And so the U.S. Constitution was, whoop, whoop, whoop. You see that? Let's do it again. Woo. Our second Constitution. Our Constitution, this one, the second one, which is still in existence today, we're still following it, created a stronger government. Had a president, had a Supreme Court. The Articles of Government did not have those. Whereas the Articles of Congress only had one house, our Congress now has 2 houses. It's bicameral. Sorry, it's very hard for me to keep my fingers in the What are those two houses of Congress? The House of Representatives and the Senate. And you're going to need to know those later, like very soon. So, the next couple of days, next week. What powers did the Constitution give? I mean, lots of powers that the Articles of Government didn't have. Power to tax, the power to regulate trade, the power to raise a standing army, which none of those were any powers that the Articles of Government didn't have any of these. None of these. It was written in Philadelphia, in the same city that the Declaration of Independence was written. But it's not like they wrote it and then magically, boom, it becomes in effect. Like it had to go through a process of becoming ratified, becoming official. So each state had to debate back and forth about whether or not to ratify it. 9 out of the 13 states needed to ratify it before it would take effect. And that didn't happen until the next year, 1787. 1788. 1787 was when it was written. 1788 is when it took effect. And that's what this picture is kind of showing. It's showing, once the 9th state ratified the Constitution, then it went into effect. Delaware was the first one, Pennsylvania, and then New Jersey, and so on and so forth. But then when we get to New Hampshire, they were the 9th. When they did it, when they ratified it, it became official. Virginia and New York had not ratified it yet. And this poster from the 1788 was a propaganda poster saying, hey, Virginia and New York, you need to join, because if you don't, you'll probably fall apart, and we'll probably fall apart. We need to be all together. In order to convince people to ratify the Constitution, we have the Federalist Papers. They are 85 essays written by 3 men in support of the Constitution. Does anybody know the names of any of the men who wrote the Federalist Papers, who wrote these 85 essays? There were 3. There were only 3 men, and there was a very organized process for them to do it. Does anybody know? Okay, so here's a clue. On Disney Plus, you might know that there is a very famous Broadway musical out, and it's about this one of the writers, the guy who was in charge of the Federalist Papers. What's your name, man? Alexander Hamilton. If you haven't seen it, you need to see it. James Madison was also in it, his character is also in the Hamilton play, and nobody cares about the third guy. Hamilton was the Secretary of Treasury, the first Secretary of Treasury, George Washington's right-hand man. Gonna need my right-hand man. That's from the musical. James Madison was our 4th president, and then John Jay was the 3rd one, and nobody really cares about him because he didn't really. His essays were kind of crummy. The Federalist Papers argued that we got to have a stronger national government. We have to. The articles stunk. We got to make it better. Now, just so you can see, this is a picture of Hamilton. Here's a picture of Madison, what they looked like. I put John Jay in here because nobody cares about him, so I just kind of squeezed him in. He was the first Supreme Court Chief Justice, though. So we've never agreed on anything in U.S. history, ever. So obviously there's an argument even about the Constitution. The people who opposed the Constitution were called anti-federalists. Federalists supported, anti-federalists opposed. These were essays written by a lot of different people. It wasn't just 3 like the Federalist Papers were. It wasn't very organized. It was just a whole bunch of people who didn't like it, like the Constitution. They took weird names, like they didn't want people to know who they were. So one guy took a pseudonym, a nickname. He called himself Brutus. Another was Sentinel. Another guy, one of my favorites, Federal Farmer. Right? They opposed the ratification of the Constitution. The Anti-Federalists opposed it. This should hopefully be an easy thing to remember. If you are anti, you are opposed to the Constitution. They favored a weak national government. They thought that if we have a strong national government, it'll just be like Britain and they'll just take away our rights. They wanted stronger state governments. The people of New York wanted New York state to be stronger than the federal government. The people of Virginia wanted Virginia state to be stronger than the federal government. Now they lost. They lost the debate because obviously the Constitution was ratified. So they lost, but they are influential in many ways. And here's one of the major ways they're influential. They demanded a Bill of Rights, and they got the Bill of Rights. This is a little bit more chaotic, and this is a little bit more accurate, I think. The first picture I showed you for the Declaration being signed was everybody's quiet and, ooh, nice and peaceful. And here you have just shouting and debate going on and so on. And this was at the Constitutional Convention, and that was more, I think, what it was like. Like they argued a lot. Very few of the same people signed the Constitution that also signed the Declaration of Independence. You can see one, Benjamin Franklin right there. And of course, the president of the Continental Congress, the president of the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia was none other than George Washington. So the Bill of Rights was promised to the Anti-Federalists. If you ratify, then we'll give you a Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights were proposed in this year, and it took them 2 years, the states, 2 years to ratify them. Of the 12 that were initially proposed, 10 were ratified. One of the 2 that didn't get ratified eventually became the 27th Amendment, which was ratified in the 1990s. I don't remember what the other one was or if it ever got passed, but the Bill of Rights are the first 10 amendments, and they're the things that probably the things we cherish the most about any of these founding documents. We love the Declaration of Independence saying all men are created equal, and then we like the Bill of Rights saying we have the right to religion, freedom of speech, freedom of press, no cruel and unusual punishments, right to bear arms, etc. So that is what is this, Screencastify? Yeah, that's my little lecture. Discard the ink annotations. I'm going to close it out now. Hopefully you got all of those blanks filled in. If not, ask the real Mr. Beavers who's standing over there, probably, for any help that you need. And then, yeah, well, have a good one. Goodbye.